Hey everybody, Jimmy Smith here to own my picks for this weekend. 6-0. Awesome. Check me out. And that, by the way, is not a testament at all to my genius at picking fights. I think a lot of these for the UFC were pretty solid. Usyk, I'll give myself credit for the Usyk fight. I'll do a separate video on that. But Usyk over Fury in boxing, and the rest of them, of course, on the UFC this weekend. Let me go over them. Angela Hill over Luana Pinheiro. I picked Angela Hill. I thought she'd win by decision because that's how Angie usually wins. She's solid, she's technical, she's tactical. If you don't beast her, meaning if you don't have some physical advantage like a lot of speed or a lot of power, and you just go technique with her back and forth, she wins those kind of fights, which she doesn't lose a disputed decision. So Angie, I thought, was the right kind of fighter to beat Pinheiro. She ends up doing it by guillotine in round number 2. By that point, by the way, if you didn't watch the fight, Pinheiro, by that point, was getting outboxed and getting pieced up a little bit. She had lost round number 1. She's most of the way through a round number 2 that she's losing. She went for a desperation takedown and left her neck in there. Boop, guillotine, and it was over. So Angie Hill getting it done, partly because Pinheiro wasn't getting it done when it came to the boxing. So she went for a bad takedown, and that's exactly what happened. Ended up in a guillotine. Angie Hill doing it in round number 2. Bang, 1-0 for me. Adrian Yanez over Vinicius Salvador. Salvador, despite being a huge underdog in this fight, was looking good in the beginning of the fight. But he made some mistakes that tactically people make in fights until they get experience and get to the elite level. He had his hands down. He was moving a lot. Whenever somebody has their hands down a lot, if you're a boxing fan, Sergio Martinez, Prince Nassim Hamed, Roy Jones Jr., if you're an MMA fan, Anderson Silva liked to drop his hands and mug a lot. You have to have a lot of awareness. It isn't about speed necessarily, although all those fighters are very, very fast. You have to be able to read punches and see stuff coming. And I always tell people, if you fight like Roy Jones Jr., you better have the awareness of Roy Jones Jr. You're going to get knocked out. You better have the speed of Roy Jones Jr. You're going to get knocked out. All right? You can't go mugging around unless you are super duper fast or super duper aware, right? You have great timing. So the problem is Salvador was winning early in the striking, but a lot of movement, a lot of hands dropping. And he didn't have the awareness to read the offense of Yanez, so he ended up getting knocked down and knocked out. The other part of it is whenever somebody moves a lot in a fight, I always say, if you don't couple that with awareness, you're just as likely to move into a punch as you are to move away from one. But if you're just doing this, you're moving all over the place, you're just as likely to run into a shot as you are to get away from one, unless you are capable of, once again, reading your opponent's offense. And Salvador didn't have that other part of the equation. So looked good for a minute, but then Adrian Yanez lands a big punch, drops him some vicious ground and pound, finishes him 2 minutes, 47 seconds of round number 1. Boom, 2-0. All right, Themba Gimbo versus Ramiz Bahimi. Is how you say his name. Bahimi, I think. Bahimi. Unanimous decision. What bugged me about this is Ramiz went for all these over-under takedowns, which is an over-under clinch position, would try to beast Gimbo, who was a little bit bigger, and end up falling on his butt. Really inefficient takedowns, really inefficient strategy. If you're going to be the superior submission guy, your takedown has to be efficient. You have to get it done without losing a lot of energy. You can't spend a lot of time in these clinch positions against bigger guys. At the elite level, A, it's not going to work. And B, even if it does work, it's going to cost you a lot of energy. The best takedown guys in MMA weren't necessarily the most decorated wrestlers. They were just efficient enough with the takedown that they didn't spend a lot of time trying to get it. Matt Hughes, back in the day, 2-time All-American, that's impressive. Didn't win a national title, wasn't going to the Olympics, but he had a really good blast double leg where he could take you down without spending a lot of energy. GSP, same deal. Great blast double leg. Efficient takedowns. And as I was looking at the submission skills of Ramiz, yeah, he had 10 wins all by submission, but you're not going to catch this guy from your back. You got to get on top of him, and he was never in that position throughout this fight. And on the feet, I thought Gimbo was the better kickboxer. So it was a boring fight, really, really slow, but I didn't like the inefficiency of the takedown. You're not going to end up in these slogging, slow clinch positions. You're not going to take guys down and have any gas left to finish them. And so I thought it was a really bad strategy from the beginning. Gimbo won an ugly fight, nullified the submission gain of Ramiz, and that was it. So unanimous decision for Gimbo, 3-0 for me. Colleen Williams, Chaos Williams versus Carlston Harris. It was a stand-up battle. Williams was the better kickboxer. Boom. There you go. Went a grand total of 1 minute, 30 seconds. Clipped him with a big shot, dropped him, and that was all she wrote from Chaos Williams. I thought it'd be a little tougher. I thought Carlson Harris would be able to drag this into the later rounds, maybe. Did have a similar frame. Wasn't a bad kickboxer in his own right. I didn't think he was going to get dropped this early, but it ended up happening. Chaos Williams winning a minute 30 into round number 1. He's showing he's a very good mid-level fighter. We'll see if they move him up or give him that, next big name to see what he can do. Moving on to the main event. Lerone Murphy versus Edson Barbosa. Barbosa ended up taking on a better, younger, slicker version of himself. That's it. There are these times, whether in training or in fighting, whatever the deal is, in any style you might train, where like halfway through you go, okay, this guy's better than me at this. And that's it. That's it. This guy's better than me. Maybe I was better than him at some point in my life. Maybe in my prime I could have beaten this guy. But midway through round number 2, I went, all right, Murphy's better. Right? And Edson Barbosa is one of those guys, even in his prime, he was capable of flashes of real greatness. He couldn't string those moments together enough to be really great in an era of great lightweights, if that makes sense. He did have some highlight reel knockouts. He was able to do some great things. But when it came to Khabib and Justin Gaethje and Paul Felder and the great guys of his era, Tony Ferguson, Cowboy Cerrone, he couldn't get over the hump, right? So we all know about the Terry Edom spinning wheel kick knockout. That'll live forever. That's 12 years old at this point. It's been a dozen years since then. He was a guy who maybe in some other era of lightweight, he could have been a contender. He was in a very tough era of lightweight where his skill set, once again, you saw in the Kevin Lee fight, great example. He rocked Kevin Lee, right? Kevin Lee was just looked like a puppet for a second. Kevin Lee came back and won the fight. It's one of those things where he would have, once again, moments of, oh man, he's really great. But the consistency of stringing those moments together into great fights, into a great career, into real contendership, I don't think Barbosa ever really had that. And once again, I will say that it's a great era of lightweight, and maybe in another era he's a contender. He was not capable of doing that in the era in which he had his prime. It's unfortunate, but it's true. So, there we go. 5-0 on the UFC with my picks. Wish I could have made you guys more money. A lot of favorites in that one. But, for example, for the main event, I was really surprised Murphy wasn't bigger than whatever he was, minus 150. I thought he'd be a much bigger favorite against Edson Barbosa, who, once again, past his prime. And in his prime, he was just below that contender status. So, anyway, 5-0 on the UFC. Then, oh, my God, Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk. Amazing fight if you didn't see it. Wow. Whether you're a boxing fan or not, you got to check it out. Basically, the way it went, Usyk, and I picked Usyk to win. I said the only way you'd make money is, because it's a coin flip fight. If you want to throw a little spice in there, you can get really big money on knockout before round 10. We'll get to that in a second. But Usyk outboxed Fury for the first couple rounds. Fury then turns it around, starts outboxing Usyk through the middle rounds. If you didn't watch it, man, Fury has real speed for a 6'9" guy who's a little thick. My God, he's quick. And when he was landing that jab, you could hear it. Bam! A snapping jab. Had a really good jab, really good movement once he kind of started reading Usyk a little bit better. And he had this looping body shot. One of the things about being 6'9" with long arms is you're able to kind of hit the ribs even from a distance. Now, that can be a dangerous punch, by the way, if you haven't studied boxing. Anytime you lower your hand to throw a body shot and you don't bring your hand back, you can get rocked. He's quick enough, long enough, and accurate enough that he could land some good body shots against Usyk from comparatively far away. Started landing those and started really outboxing Usyk in the middle with his jab, his movement, and his body shots. And a couple of his body shots hurt Usyk. Now, I did Pro Box TV. That's my full-time gig these days. We did a post-fight show. Check it out on Pro Box TV. I was with Paulie Malignaggi in studio, and then we had Chris Algieri joining us via Zoom. And one of the things Paulie said that I thought was very, very smart, of course, Paulie knows boxing. He said Usyk was always putting physical and mental pressure on Fury. Even when Fury was outboxing him, he never went away. Fury was never able to land that big shot, although he did hit him with a couple body shots that hurt him, to back Usyk off. Usyk was always in his face, always boxing, always, angling, moving. And Fury could never really get any rest. He was always trying to like keep Usyk off him, even when he was winning rounds in the middle of the fight. And what that does is that just puts pressure on a guy, and you'll find those cracks, right? You'll find those moments to get your offense back because you're never allowing Fury to kind of like relax on the outside. And true, Usyk never did that. Even when he was being outboxed, he was still physically in his face and still trying to win and still trying to land punches. Then, in round number 9, hits him, hurts him. Fury goes back against the ropes. He's a southpaw. It was a left hand. Hurt him. I want to talk about a lot of people upset at the referee and the way he handled round number 9. He handled it by the letter of boxing very, very well. I want to explain that. When he hit Fury, Fury is bouncing off the ropes, but he's bouncing off the ropes trying to recover. He's hurt, he's wobbled, but he's bouncing off the ropes trying to like save himself, right? Not rope-a-doping because he's legitimately hurt, but trying to move and all that stuff. The knockdown in round number 9 is toward the end of the round. What happened was, Fury stumbles. He's hurt. Usyk's all over him. He stumbles, falls into the ropes. Now, the rule is, if the ropes are the only thing holding you up, if there weren't ropes there, that'd be a knockdown. That's called a knockdown. The referee goes, stop, starts counting. A lot of people thought that was a standing 8 count. There are no standing 8 counts in professional boxing for the most part. Some states still do them. That's an amateur thing. If it's so bad you need to stop the assault, the fight's over. You can't stop and go and count. Either they're down or they're not. You're either stopping the fight or you're not. This wasn't a standing 8 count. He was saying he would have fallen all the way if the ropes weren't there, which, if you rewatch it, which I have several times, he was going to fall down. The referee did exactly the right thing. Stop, counted, and it was the end of the round, and Fury was able to get to his corner and continue fighting. A lot of people thought, the ref saved Fury. He did the exact right thing, which is the ropes were holding him up. That's a knockdown. You stop and you count. If he had stepped in right there and waved off the fight, I would have understood that. But clearly, Fury had enough left in the tank to box, right, for the next 10, 11, 12, the next 3 rounds. So Fury was able to recover. So it wasn't like, man, he waved him off and saved him a bunch of damage. No, he was able to get back in the fight and fight back. You could have given him round 12. I thought Usyk clearly won 10 and 11. But this idea that the ref kind of saved Fury. The ref did what he was supposed to do, which is call a knockdown. After that, Fury is on borrowed time next 2 rounds. I think it took him 2 rounds to kind of recover. You could argue he did fight very well in the 12th round. By then, maybe he's adjusted to the damage and all that stuff. Fury wins a split decision. I thought the judge that gave it to Fury was out of his mind. I did understand. One judge, I don't have the numbers in front of me. One judge gave it to Usyk by a couple rounds. Another one just gave it to him by 1 point. 114, 113, meaning that knockdown was the factor. That it was even except for that knockdown. Obviously, that 1 point ended up being the difference. Fine. The right guy won by split decision. I'll take it. Could it have been a draw? I don't think so. I thought Usyk won it by a couple rounds. But I would have at least, I wouldn't be screaming robbery and all that. I wouldn't be doing that. I disagree. I think Usyk won the fight. I think he won it by a couple rounds. But still, that was one of those performances that we're going to remember for a long time. It was one of those performances that we're going to go, man, Usyk Fury. That was one of the greatest heavyweight boxing matches of all time. I really believe that. And I saw Holyfield Bowe. I saw that whole trilogy. I've seen some great heavyweight fights in my time. And, Klitschko Lewis, I've seen some great ones. It was the tactical back and forth. Both guys had to make adjustments. It wasn't one guy clearly better than the other for 12 rounds. Both guys had to go, okay, you're losing, you got to do something. Both of them did. And both of them did that. They adjusted and did really well. And then the power of Usyk ended up being the difference, which no one would have predicted. I would have said, Usyk by decision. Okay, I can live with that. That's what I predicted, right? That's my 6th pick. I picked Usyk. But this idea that his power was the difference, his ability to hurt Fury, I wouldn't have predicted that. I wouldn't have predicted that at some point he's going to hurt Fury. One of our producers at ProBox made money. You could get like plus 220 on at some point Fury getting knocked down in this fight. And he was knocked down the 9th. He made his money. But it was this idea that Usyk's ability to hurt Fury ended up being the difference. His ability to outbox Fury, I think anybody who picked Usyk probably thought that. But the fact that his power got him back in it after Fury had done such a good job with the jab and the body shots and the movement that he was able to get in there and actually hurt him and turn the fight around. Brilliant stuff. Really beautiful fight. There is going to be a rematch. There's a rematch clause in the contract. That will make a ton of money. But we saw a heavyweight classic. A heavyweight classic Saturday evening. And great stuff all the way around. But Usyk wins. I'm 6-0 on the weekend. Appreciate you. I'll be back again this week.